Welcome to yet another edition of One Take. I'm Pallavi Ghosh, and this week we are going to be focusing on Manipur. There are different versions to a story of Manipur, what's gone wrong, what can be done. And questions are being raised as why is it that this state is being ignored? Is it because it is in far away northeast, so to say, or it doesn't really matter geographically or politically speaking? I'm afraid that's not really the reason. People have been talking about the situation in Manipur, but it's always been a sensitive and a delicate one, which is why one needs to discuss it with caution. Now, the question I'm asking this week is the relationship so bad between the two main castes who are fighting, that is the Meiteis and the Kukis, that despite all attempts being made by the centre and the state leadership to try and get two of them to work together, is it going to be too deep a fissure, which perhaps in future is going to mean that they may not be able to work well together or even stay together? And this is going to have an impact on the future of Manipur as a state, politically, economically speaking, but more importantly, socially. We are all aware of how it began from, so we are not going to dwell on that factor. And in fact, I'm going to be focusing a little bit on the little measures which are being taken to ensure that, they are called the confidence building measures, to ensure that these two groups actually can coexist. Well, we know that the Home Minister, Mr. Amit Shah, has stayed there for 3 nights, where he had tried to go to both the Meitei as well as the Kuki controlled areas. He sent out this word that the centre is going to be working in close coordination with all the stakeholders as well as the state government to ensure that peace comes to the state. But after that, it's been followed up, for example, with a visit by the Assam Chief Minister, Hemant Biswa Sarma, who spent over 2 hours with the Manipur Chief Minister. The problem over here is that there's a lack of trust or faith in the Chief Minister as far as the Kukis are concerned. They feel that he's not the man who perhaps can bring peace to a state. But so much is the level of distrust and miscommunication and rumour mongering at times that it seems at this point of time very difficult that perhaps the two of them can work together. So my question again this week is, and I do want your social media reactions on this, some are talking about an autonomous region for the Kukis. Is that really the answer? Does that help, and is it fair on the Manipuris? It's a state which has largely been women controlled. It's also a state where we all know about how women would step out, they would do their movements against alcohol, for example, and how it worked very successfully over there. But at the same time, this is one state which has managed to coexist, work together. But today it seems to be a state which at least seems to be falling apart, despite the fact that there is a certain amount of order which is being seen as far as the measures are taken. But now a peace proposal, now a committee which has been set up, that doesn't seem to be eliciting a very strong and vocal reaction as far as the Kukis are concerned. They already started to question why is the Chief Minister a part of it. And when you have a situation where the CM does not have the trust of the people in terms of finding a solution, that is a problem. Now, we also reported about a National Highway 2 or the NH2, which is an important road which links, for example, Dimapur in Nagaland to Imphal in Manipur. Who are the ones who are carrying out that blockades? It's actually the Kuki women organizations. And in fact, the allegation coming in from the security forces is that these women are making a task tougher because we are not able to maintain a semblance of order. We are not able to ensure that there is a free movement. Now, Manipur, I know things are improving in the northeast in terms of infrastructural facilities, in terms of communication and transportation and connectivity, but it's still not there yet. And therefore, it depends on the rest of the country for many of the essential commodities. Many adjoining states like Nagaland and Arunachal Pradesh, so on and so forth, which is why the highways become the artery or the lifeline for the people. And therefore, when NH2 gets disrupted or blocked, it becomes a problem for the people of Manipur. But this is something which we are all aware of whenever there's a certain amount of restlessness taking place. Now, this brings me back to a question of the demand, and I've met a couple of Kukis who have settled down over here, and many from the Meiteis also who sporadically are holding their protests and they set up their own organizations, and have also set up the refugee camps, and they're holding the protests, for example, at Jantar Mantar and in other areas as well. And in private, they say it's best that we part. But it's easier said than done, because they've been living together for years, decades. There have been marriages between the two. There's been trade ties, economic ties between the two. And in such a situation, if we are going to talk about breakup of even an autonomous region, it is seen as one, not a very successful incident or a successful experiment in the past. There are states which have come up with these kind of solutions, but it's never really worked. And second is that, I met this Kuki woman, for example. She's married to someone from the Meitei tribe, but today she's living here in Delhi because she's scared to go back home. She says, how will I live? Do I really want to live like that? So what's the solution? Is the solution a change of chief ministership? Well, in troubled times, and remember in my earlier episode, I said that, when there are troubled times, when there's a crisis brewing, our resignation is really the solution. But if things go completely out of control, if clearly the people on the ground are not willing to listen or even believe some of the measures which are being announced by the centre, the experiments being announced by the centre, or the confidence building measures, is then the best solution the resignation of the chief minister? Is it what it's leading up to? Second, an autonomous region, say for Kukis, as some are arguing, will it be able to sustain itself economically? Will it be able to sustain itself in a long-term plan? These are the real problems as far as Manipur goes. Was the situation allowed to flare out of control? Should it have been a kind of stepping in much, much earlier? And will a peace accord or a peace settlement not really be brokered? And even if it is, as we are expecting, then will it really last? Because then there's a complete amount of distrust and personal enmity. And when, you find even the women stepping in, and remember, women in Manipur, as I mentioned earlier, have played a very important role as far as a fight against alcohol is concerned. Can peace last in Manipur? But what impact is it likely to have on adjoining areas? We already know that Northeast is a very vulnerable, sensitive area. They are our opponents across the border who are breathing down the neck, who want to take advantage of the situation. Therefore, it's one state which cannot be allowed to linger. In fact, frankly speaking, no state can allow trouble to linger for a long, long time. But at least in the Northeast, it's not. It is something which is going to have a boomerang. It is something which can hurt, which is why the centre is very concerned. And therefore, keeping in mind the global, or the rather the geographical location of Manipur, it's a situation or a trouble which cannot go on for a very long time. Second, the BJP's Northeast outreach or Mission Northeast has been one of the most powerful agendas. Therefore, in that context, the BJP is very apprehensive and very keen that it doesn't have a spiraling effect. Their experiment in Northeast, which has been successful, doesn't collapse. And therefore, is a separation or an autonomous region really the way out? Can peace ever return to Manipur? How do you really win over the trust of the local people over there? In this case, both the Meiteis as well as the Kukis. We are keeping our fingers crossed and hope that peace comes and peace lasts in this beautiful state of Manipur.